So, Senator Manchin's main priority is to represent West Virginia, and that's why he values hearing from West Virginians. Each day, he keeps in touch with West Virginians by meeting with constituents, visiting various places in the state, listening to voicemails, reading emails and letters, and sending his staff to be there when he has to be in Washington, D.C. Our staff motto is, "How may we help you?" Because the senator expects us to give excellent customer service to all West Virginians who contact him. Senator Manchin has heard from many West Virginians in the last year regarding federal income tax filings. The senator's constituent services team tries to provide the most up-to-date information to constituents. Today, just in time for tax filing season, we'd like to provide constituents direct access to officials of the Taxpayer Advocate Service and the Internal Revenue Service for real-time, relevant tax filing information. I'd like to begin by introducing our agency representatives for today's webinar. Larry Hostadel serves as the district liaison for the Taxpayer Advocate Service in West Virginia. Also joining us today is Mr. Brent Bowie, Congressional Liaison for IRS Legislative Affairs. Today, both Larry and Brent will share pertinent information and answer some highly anticipated questions from our constituents.
Thank you, Chris, and hello to everyone out there. My name is Larry Hostadel. I am the West Virginia Local Taxpayer Advocate. Myself and my staff are located in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and I have been the taxpayer advocate since 2010. We are your voice to the IRS, meaning that we solve problems on your tax accounts and tax issues to get your results. If you do feel that you need to talk to an operator for taxpayer advocate service, you can do so by calling 877-777-4778.
Hello, yes, I'm Brent Bowie. I'm a congressional liaison, and within my role, I work with congressional district offices on policy changes, agency programs, as well as other issues of interest. Within my role, I make sure that congressional offices keep up to date on information so they can pass it on to constituents. In addition to your congressional offices providing you this information, we also have a great resource within the IRS called irs.gov.
Thank you, Larry and Brent. I'd encourage participants to reach out to the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate Service with any federal income tax filing questions. At least 30% of the calls Senator Manchin asks me to assist with every day deal with constituent inquiries regarding federal income tax filing, stimulus payments, or the child tax credits. Through our conversations with constituents, we've compiled a list of the top issues and questions that individuals have regarding their federal income tax filing. Larry and Brent, I'll read each of these questions and open the floor to you to provide your expertise. Our first question is from Mr. Parson in Berkeley County. Mr. Parson asks, my tax return for 2019 took 8 months to process and my 2020 filing almost as long. What do I need to know now about filing my 2021 taxes? Is there anything that I can do to ensure that my taxes are processed in a timely way? Brent, I think that you could probably most better answer this question. And Larry, feel free to jump in.
Yes, thank you for this question, Mr. Parsons. Filing electronically with direct deposit and avoiding a paper tax return is more important than ever this year to avoid refund delays. If you need a tax refund quickly, I encourage you to not file paper, but use a software, a trusted tax professional, or free file, which is available on irs.gov. For people with no issues with their tax return, we anticipate most taxpayers will receive their refund within 21 days of filing if they choose direct deposit.
Also, I would add when you do file a return, whichever method, electronically or paper, make sure that your income documents, review them closely, make sure they are reported on the return properly. They are attached to the return, and also take advantage of any tax preference items you can, such as the earned income credit, the child tax credit, or the recovery rebate credit if you didn't get all your stimulus payments.
Great, thank you both so much. Our next question is from Mrs. Campbell from Tucker County. Mrs. Campbell shares, I plan to file my taxes by paper this year. I've heard on the news that the IRS has mail that has been unprocessed from last year. How can I be sure that my filing will be received and processed in a timely manner? Brent, I believe this would again fall under your purview as more of a policy technical question, but Larry, please feel free to jump in and add your thoughts too.
Thank you, Mrs. Campbell, for this question. So even if your 2020 tax return has yet to be processed, you can still file your 2021 tax returns. I would encourage you to file electronically, but if you must file by paper, then file early and accurately to avoid delays. For anyone in this group who chooses to file electronically, here's an important point. Taxpayers need their adjusted gross income, also known as AGI, from their most recent tax return when they file electronically. For those waiting on their 2020 tax return to be processed, make sure you enter zero, as in $0, for last year's AGI on your 2021 tax return.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Mr. Short from Kanawha County asks, I have questions about my federal filing and my repayment schedule on a previous tax debt, but I haven't been able to get anyone on the phone to answer my questions. How can I talk to a live person at the IRS? Larry, would you like to take this question?
Yes, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Mr. Short. If you're doing your current year tax return, and upon completion of it, you determine that you do have a liability that you can't pay in full, there is actually a form 9465, a request for an installment agreement, that you can actually complete and attach to your return. And with that form, you get to pick what day you want the payment to fall between 1 and 30. And you can also put in the dollar amount that you can afford that fits your budget. Now, if you have prior year tax liabilities and wish to talk to somebody on the phone to set up a payment plan, an installment agreement that way, you can do so by calling the Automated Collection Service, for which is a department of the IRS. And their toll-free number is 1-800-829-3903. And that person will gather some financial information from you, look at the balance that you have due, and try to work out a payment plan that you have it paid off in a maximum. They will not go any longer than 5-year period.
Good information. Thank you, Larry. Our last question is from Mrs. Garcia in Cabell County. I sent my payment for my 2020 federal income tax filing. The IRS cashed my check, but I received a letter stating that my 2020 filing had not been received. What should I do to correct this? Larry, would you like to take this question as well?
Yes, and Ms. Garcia, thank you for the question, and you're not alone. To give a little bit of procedure, the IRS in October and November routinely look at all taxpayer accounts and try to clear out credit balances to get them down to zero and get refunds out to clear them to zero before the new filing season starts. Now, if an individual filed a return last year and they sent their return in and they sent a payment in, when that return is processed, the return goes one direction to be processed and the check goes another direction to be cashed. So her account is probably showing a credit balance because that check was cashed, but her return hasn't been processed. People that have these credit balances would have received a CP80 letter from the IRS asking them what to do with that credit balance, whether to transfer it to a different year, to refund it. In her case, and with a lot of other taxpayers, if you did file a balance due return and it hasn't been processed, I would just wait, give the IRS another 60 or 90 days to see if it processes. If it doesn't in those 90 days, you can actually call my office, and that number is 304-420-8695. And my intake advocate will be able to look your information up on the computer and see what the problem is, or if it's just as simple as the return hasn't been processed, and give you advice on how to handle it, or possibly even make it a case for me to assign to a case advocate.
These are some great questions, and I know there are so many people around the state with the same questions. I hope this information will be helpful. As we wrap up, I want Larry and Brent to advise constituents of any important reminders or helpful tips as tax season begins to roll out.
As I spoke earlier, the IRS is doing document matching, so make sure you have all your income documents, your W-2s, your 1099s. Make sure you have them all so you can input them on your return. Make sure the numbers are input properly, and take advantage of those taxpayer benefit credits, such as the earned income credit, the child tax credit, and the recovery rebate credit if you didn't get your stimulus for 2021.
Yes, and I'll add a couple points. I may sound redundant, but these points are very, very important. First, to avoid delays, the IRS encourages people to make sure they're ready to file an accurate tax return. An accurate tax return can avoid processing delays, extensive refund delays, and later IRS notices. Now, we have a wealth of information and tools available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on irs.gov to help you prepare to file that accurate return. The other point is filing electronically with direct deposit and avoiding a paper tax return is more important than ever with the current backlog. We want you to avoid refund delays. If you need a tax refund quickly, do not file paper and use software, a trusted tax professional, as well as we have free file on irs.gov available to use. Thank you.
Thank you both so very much for those helpful tips. And thank you for joining Senator Manchin's informational session with the Taxpayer Advocate Service and the IRS. If you or someone you know needs help with Taxpayer Advocate Service or the IRS, please feel free to contact Senator Manchin by phone at 304-342-5855 or email us at common_sense@manchin.senate.gov. Senator Manchin has a record for helping West Virginians, and here are just a few stories. Mr. David Jones from Alderson, West Virginia. Mr. Jones contacted Senator Manchin for assistance with his 2019 tax returns for his mother's estate. Mr. Jones filed the estate's tax returns in April 2020, tried for months to contact the IRS. After the senator's inquiry was submitted, the required documentation was submitted and the refund was released within 90 days of Mr. Jones contacting Senator Manchin. Mr. Burton Grouse, director of the Nicholas County Senior Center. The director contacted Senator Manchin for assistance with the Senior Center's tax returns and the late filing penalty assessed by the IRS. After the senator's inquiry was submitted, verification was obtained that the tax returns had been filed, and the IRS approved the abatement of the late filing penalty within 60 days of Mr. Grouse contacting Senator Manchin. Mr. Michael Cole, founder of Lauren's Wish Addiction Triage Center. The founder contacted Senator Manchin for assistance with expediting the agency's nonprofit status application so that the agency could apply for additional funding. After the senator's inquiry was submitted, the required documentation was submitted and the IRS expedited the nonprofit status within 58 days of Mr. Cole contacting Senator Manchin.